Press was wonderful for her. The British people loved Harry, and they were delighted.
I'm like, you guys, I saw this a long time ago. But a pretty...
Failed to rank among Netflix's top 300 most watched titles.
The shift didn't happen quietly. It landed with a thud that echoed across Hollywood, cable news, and the once protective corridors of American media. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the couple who built an entire post-royal identity around compassion, mental health advocacy, and escaping a supposedly toxic press, suddenly found themselves on the wrong side of a publication that had once championed them. Vanity Fair, the Hollywood Bible, the very magazine that helped anoint Meghan as modern royalty during her engagement glow-up, published a takedown so detailed, so sourced, and so unsparing that it forced a recalibration of the entire narrative. And then Megyn Kelly stepped in.
Out there to sort of shake the hands of people, and let's be honest about it.
She didn't whisper. She didn't hedge. She didn't couch her words in diplomatic fog. Kelly did what she's built a career doing. She seized the moment when the cultural tide turned and drove straight through the opening. In her telling, this wasn't about tabloid cruelty or royal gossip. This was about accountability, about contradictions, about a brand collapsing under the weight of its own slogans. Vanity Fair's piece wasn't some throwaway hit job. This wasn't a British tabloid sharpening knives. These were American journalists, quoting people who worked directly with the Sussexes, producers, staffers, collaborators, people with resumes, reputations, and nothing to gain by fabricating chaos. The reporting painted a picture that clashed violently with the image Meghan and Harry had sold to the world, that of empathetic leaders building a healthier, kinder workplace culture. According to the article, that image didn't survive contact with reality. Megyn Kelly zeroed in on the line that changed everything. A professional who interacted directly with Meghan allegedly said, "I think if Meghan acknowledged her own shortcomings or personal contributions to situations rather than staying trapped in a victim narrative, her perception might be better." Kelly called it devastating, not because it was cruel, but because it was measured. It wasn't hate. It wasn't ideology. It was the kind of criticism that lands hardest because it's calm, specific, and difficult to dismiss as bias. From there, the dam broke. Vanity Fair detailed what it described as a pattern: projects stalling, staff burning out, employees taking extended leaves of absence, even undergoing long-term therapy after working in the Sussex orbit. One example stood out for its sheer absurdity. A colleague connected to Meghan's Archetypes podcast reportedly worked on just 3 episodes before taking a leave of absence, and then leaving the production company entirely. 3 episodes. Kelly paused on that detail, letting it breathe. That's not a rough week. That's not a mismatch of expectations. In her framing, that's a system problem. And then there was Harry.
So is that a good thing for you in a way that there's so much interest in you?
No, there's definitely not.
Sources allegedly described him as disengaged, difficult to motivate, and oddly resistant to basic production realities. Hours wasted trying to coax him into podcast ideas, meetings that went nowhere, deals signed with no roadmap for delivery. Kelly pounced on it. Multi-million-dollar contracts secured not by ideas or preparation, but by name recognition and controversy. In her words, that's not innovation, it's entitlement. The irony, she argued, was almost too perfect. Here were 2 people who had made mental health the moral centerpiece of their brand, while, according to these accounts, their own staff were buckling under the strain of working for them. Meghan and Harry positioned themselves as advocates against workplace toxicity, yet Vanity Fair's sources suggested they were generating exactly that. Kelly didn't stop there. She widened the lens.
Somebody to give him specifics on what they did wrong. He needs specifics, and only then will he apologize. I got you, Prince.
Vanity Fair also quoted neighbors in Montecito, the ultra-wealthy enclave where the Sussexes retreated in search of privacy. The verdict, as reported, was brutal. One local allegedly described them as the most entitled, disingenuous people on the planet. Kelly underlined the contradiction. The couple claimed to flee press intrusion, yet appeared to court attention relentlessly. Documentaries, podcasts, memoirs, interviews, each one framed as a reluctant act of self-defense, even as the media footprint grew larger than ever. Which is it? Kelly asked. Are they victims of a relentless press, or media addicts who can't survive without the spotlight? The question became unavoidable when placed alongside Harry's ongoing legal crusade against UK newspapers. He cast himself as a warrior for privacy, railing against intrusion and unethical journalism. Yet he was the same man who sat down with Oprah to share private family conversations. The same man who wrote a memoir detailing intimate arguments with his father, brother, and grandmother. The same man who participated in a Netflix series that displayed private messages and behind-the-scenes footage.
Serious, but I jokingly referred that, don't forget about all of the victims here.
Kelly's assessment was ruthless. When tabloids publish details, it's an invasion. When Harry sells those same details for millions, it's telling his truth. The inconsistency wasn't subtle, it was structural. She quoted a line that, in this telling, crystallized the entire backlash. If you ask the royal family who invaded their privacy the most, the answer wouldn't be the press. It would be Prince Harry himself. Then came the workplace revelations, which Kelly argued were the real turning point. These weren't new accusations, she reminded viewers. Similar complaints had circulated quietly during Meghan's time in the UK, buried under NDAS and Palace Protocol. At the time, defenders argued it was a cultural mismatch. The monarchy was too rigid. Britain was too harsh. California would be different. But now, Vanity Fair was describing the same pattern, this time in America. Different country, different industry, same outcomes.
People in my inbox sending it to me. I'm like, you guys, I saw this a long time ago.
That, Kelly argued, stripped away the last plausible excuse. What made this moment explosive wasn't just the content of the article, it was who published it. Vanity Fair wasn't hostile territory, it was friendly ground. When even that ground gave way, Kelly said, it signaled something fundamental. The narrative was no longer holding. And as she leaned back and delivered her closing thought for the segment, the message was unmistakable. The Sussex brand wasn't under attack from enemies anymore. It was collapsing under the weight of its own contradictions. And this, Megyn Kelly warned, was only the beginning. Megyn Kelly argued that once the American media machine stops protecting you, there's no appeal process, no palace buffer, no sympathetic editor quietly softening the language. When Vanity Fair flipped, it wasn't just criticism, it was abandonment. And Kelly made the point brutally clear. Hollywood doesn't turn on people it still believes in. It turns on people it's finished with. She walked through the wreckage piece by piece, not with shouting, but with something far more lethal, mocking clarity. The Spotify collapse, she said, wasn't a misunderstanding or a creative difference. It was exposure. A moment when executives realized the emperor wasn't just missing clothes, he hadn't even packed a suitcase. The infamous comment from the Spotify executive calling them grifters wasn't a slip of the tongue. In Kelly's telling, it was a professional verdict, the kind people whisper privately until they're done pretending. What stunned her most, she said, was how little self-awareness seemed to exist on either side of the Sussex partnership deals. According to Vanity Fair's reporting, Meghan and Harry showed up with prestige, not plans. They assumed access would substitute for ideas. That proximity to royalty, former royalty, would be enough to carry entire content empires. Kelly laughed at the arrogance of it. That's not creativity, she said. That's entitlement dressed up as activism. Then she zeroed in on Harry's podcast Fantasy, and this is where the segment turned savage. According to the reporting, Harry's idea involved interviewing figures like Vladimir Putin and Mark Zuckerberg, not to discuss geopolitics or technology, but to explore how childhood trauma turned them into sociopaths. And Harry, apparently, would position himself as the emotionally healthy counterexample. Kelly paused, visibly incredulous. The man who's estranged from his entire family, who's written a 400-page grievance manifesto, who sues newspapers for sport, he thinks he's the psychological baseline? She didn't need to embellish. The absurdity spoke for itself. Kelly explained why this mattered. It wasn't just a bad pitch. It revealed a worldview, one where Harry saw himself as uniquely enlightened, permanently aggrieved, and morally superior, while everyone else, especially powerful men he disliked, were broken villains shaped by trauma he had somehow transcended. In her words, That level of delusion would be funny if it weren't being bankrolled by corporate millions. And then she returned to Megyn, the lifestyle show. Kelly didn't even pretend to soften the blow here. She called it catastrophically tone-deaf, a glossy Martha Stewart-style series centered on luxury cooking, curated perfection, and celebrity friendships, set to debut after devastating California wildfires displaced thousands of families. Kelly pointed out the symbolism with surgical precision. While people were losing everything, Megyn was preparing to showcase abundance. While communities were grieving, she was staging aspirational content from a mansion. "It's the baby shower all over again," Kelly said, referencing the infamous New York spectacle paired with lectures about poverty. Only this time, there was no plausible deniability, no rogue tweet, no scheduling excuse. This project had been planned, delayed, reviewed, and still greenlit, which meant someone, somewhere, looked at the optics and either didn't see the problem or didn't care. Kelly argued that this wasn't a PR failure. It was a character tell.
Trying to get her back into people's minds so she can relaunch her career, maybe.
And then came what she described as the most dangerous phase of celebrity decline: isolation. Not dramatic exile, but quiet withdrawal. Former allies stop returning calls. Invitations dry up. Support becomes conditional. According to the Vanity Fair piece, the Sussexes weren't just struggling professionally, they were becoming radioactive, difficult to work with, high maintenance, low return. Kelly reminded viewers that Hollywood is brutally transactional. If you're profitable, you're forgiven. If you're easy, you're tolerated. If you're neither, you're gone. And right now, she said, Meghan and Harry were checking every wrong box. The bullying allegations, resurfacing now in an American context, were especially damning. Kelly emphasized that patterns matter more than accusations. When the same complaints follow someone across continents, industries, and institutions, the environment stops being the variable. The person becomes the constant. She also addressed the favorite defense of Sussex supporters, that all criticism is rooted in racism or misogyny. Kelly didn't dismiss those forces outright. Instead, she said something more unsettling. Invoking them reflexively was now backfiring. When every failure is framed as persecution, genuine injustice gets diluted. When legitimate criticism is met with moral outrage, audiences disengage. Not because they're cruel, but because they're tired. That exhaustion, Kelly argued, is the Sussexes' real enemy. The Oprah interview worked once. The Netflix series worked once. Spare sold because it promised revelation. But repetition drains power. Grievances lose impact when recycled. Victimhood loses credibility when paired with luxury, lawsuits, and constant exposure. Kelly then addressed the royal family's silence, which she described not as coldness, but as containment. From a risk perspective, cutting off communication was rational. Every private conversation carried the risk of monetization. Every emotional exchange could become content. In that context, estrangement wasn't punishment, it was self-defense. The royal family didn't exile Harry, Kelly said. Harry exiled himself, one interview at a time. And here, she argued, was the final irony. Meghan and Harry had positioned themselves as truth-tellers, breaking free from an oppressive institution. But institutions survive because they don't overshare, because they understand restraint. The Sussexes, by contrast, burned through intimacy like fuel, and now, with nothing left to reveal, they were facing the worst possible outcome for people addicted to attention: indifference. Kelly predicted what came next, and it wasn't another scandal. It was something quieter. Projects launching to lukewarm reception. Articles that barely trend. Documentaries that disappear without outrage or praise. Not cancellation, irrelevance. She said it plainly. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's apathy. And Vanity Fair's pivot signaled that apathy was coming. The final moments of her commentary weren't triumphant. They were almost clinical. A case study in how celebrity narratives collapse when belief evaporates. Meghan and Harry weren't being destroyed by enemies, Kelly concluded. They were being undone by exposure. Exposure to their own inconsistencies, their lack of preparation, their inability to evolve beyond grievance as a business model. The fairy tale wasn't stolen from them. They sold it, piece by piece, until there was nothing left anyone wanted to buy. And when the spotlight finally moves on, Kelly warned, there will be no villain left to blame, only silence.